Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally. It's good to be here. This is the Question Guy podcast, and this is Lana McCarr. Please let me see, get it right. And we have had a couple of conversations. I don't know the in-depth story, and we're not going to get to all of it, but I know today is special and it's going to be dynamic because you have something from the heart that needs to be shared with the audience. And I want to get into that conversation. Talk to us, please.
Thank you so much, Keith. It's really great to be with you today. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So, yes, do you want
No,
me to
well,
jump in?
I was going to say 30 years, and then something happened, and you transitioned into this beautiful individual that you are now, but it wasn't always a good experience. How to talk? You got to tell us that story because I need to know now.
Well, I got married young. I was in my senior year of college. We were still in college, and I finished college, but I never went to work. I was a stay-at-home mom from that point on. And so I went to college to learn education and an English minor. So I did teach English for 1 year, some years later, on the, high school English, but I never really used my degree. And so those 30 years were full of family. I had 7 children in 12 years, and I began to write novels as a hobby. So I wrote novels. I got published. I published 20 plus novels during that period of time. And I had some success. I had about 500,000 books, books sold, won a national award. So I was doing that. I was doing the writing piece on, as well as raising a family, but I wasn't holding a job and I didn't have a resume per se. I was freelancing as an editor for a publishing company. And, that was basically my life. I had a vision in my mind that we would retire, the children would have houses, like within 2 or 3 blocks around, and coming in for weekend dinners and stuff like that, barbecues and all that.
Well, wait a second. Where would you be living? Because most people don't have that kind of space.
Well, we were living in Delaware. Now we had
Okay.
lived all over the place. We lived in the Caribbean 14 years, but at during this period of time, we were in Delaware, which is my home state. And that's a lot of country because I come from Amish country in Delaware.
Okay.
So a lot of family, a lot of big family, a lot of, room. And so I really had never seriously considered divorce. My marriage was really difficult. My ex-husband was, I found out later, I didn't even know, 30 years of marriage, and didn't know he was a narcissist. My therapist told me he was a narcissist. So that meant that the marriage was a one-way street. It went from me to him.
Okay.
Nothing came back.
Okay.
And that, I'm not exaggerating. Nothing came back.
Okay.
And so there was something that happened in 2009, and it wasn't anything dramatic. It was a phone call from an old friend I hadn't seen for 20 years. At the time, we still had 4 children living in the house. They were all adults. So we had 4 young adults, all males. I should say 6 males, 1 female. That I have 6 sons, one
Wow.
daughter. So I had 6 young adult men, my sons, my husband, and his brother living with us. 6 men in the house and me.
Wow.
And I was struggling. I was really struggling. When the children were younger, they had chores and we shared the work and all that. But now they've got jobs, they've got girlfriends, and they've got basketball, the gym, all this stuff going on. And I was left with laundry. You can't even imagine the laundry those guys generated. And of course, then my husband and his brother added on to that. And I was getting no help at all. So I was really drowning, in this situation. I couldn't seem to find a way out of it. And I got this call from an old friend, and she said, very encapsulated, she said, you're getting ready to cave in. You're at the end of your rope. I can hear it in your voice. She said, you've got to leave. You've got to leave. You're going to end up in the psych ward. And
Wow.
I was like, whoa. And I knew what she said was the truth. It went right into me. But the thought of leaving my family, are you kidding? That never occurred to me that I could even do it, that I would be strong enough to do it. And I sat down on my bed. I got off the phone. I was in my bedroom. I sat down on the bed and I went, oh my God. And I realized that I'd been coping till I'd backed myself against the wall and I couldn't cope anymore. And I made my plan and I left 3 days later.
Wow.
So
Whoa,
when
wait, time. Because you said you grew up in an Amish community. You're the only woman in a bunch of men, adult men, sons and whatnot. That people usually, the stories that I hear when women intend to leave, get money together, important papers, it's a strategic element that takes quite some time. And you did it in 3 days?
right, we weren't Amish. I'm from the Amish. I
Oh,
wasn't Amish
okay,
myself, but um exactly. I had $200 and my car that was in my name
okay.
and my computer system that I packed that into my trunk and I took my clothes and that's all I took. And I drove
Wow.
away. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't know if I could get a job to support myself. I'm 52 years old. I had no experience, no resume that I could say, to some important job, this is how I've climbed the ladder now and here's what, my value in your company. Um and so I went to my sister's. I did some office work for my mother. My mother had a business, but my mother was the dragon lady. I could not work with her, long term. I knew, I'm going into the dragon's lair here,
Oh my God.
jumping in. I
Wow.
think I lasted 6 weeks
And that may have
before I
been
had enough.
5 weeks too long. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew how to do some things on the computer because I'd been doing online marketing. So I reached out to some friends and I told them I'm going to do virtual assistant work. And I
Okay.
started taking in virtual assistant work. I was living on $1,200 a month. I found an
And
old
what year was
dilapidated.
this?
This was in 2009.
Oh, wow.
I found an old dilapidated trailer in the woods in South Carolina, 600 a month. And I was using my phone line for dial up. Nobody was using dial up then, but it was available and it cost $12 a month.
Hmm.
So I was doing that and I was eating ramen. No kidding, eating ramen. I kept my car on the road with insurance and so forth. I was living like this, thin. Um, my ex-husband did not give me any money, no money. And that wasn't until later after the divorce was negotiated and all that, which took about a year. So I was on my own. My family was kind to bring me furniture and so forth to help me get started. But I can remember when my brother came with this TV. he said he said to me, "You're stuck down here in the woods. You're not going to have no TV too." And he set down this television. I was so thankful. Just somebody thought of me, that they wanted to help me. I tried to get a job. I went and applied out for office manager, for a chiropractor. I did some things like that. Unbelievable. $13 an hour. And he told me the salary to run his office. He's out there with a Z4 car in the parking lot. and he's going to pay his office manager $13 an hour. Figured it up. I couldn't even pay my rent, much
Hmm.
less my car and my food for that amount of money. That's what I was up against. I was insulted on the one hand that they would actually do that to women, but they also expect you're living with a man who's got a salary. So you're just, an add on what you
Because
do to
you're in South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah, and so the culture is a bit different. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, anyway, what I did then, as I was going forward, I literally sat down and listed all of my skills. What can I do? I can cook, I can clean. I started a cleaning company. We lived in Mississippi with my children, but I wasn't going to do a cleaning company on my own.
Right.
That would have been horrendous. Um, what can I do? So I could do marketing and I could do internet marketing. I had already done a lot of webinars. I was like webinar queen, doing marketing for my books and things like that. So I knew how to do webinars, and I worked my skill set, and I began to apply in my skill set, which was not proven, but I just threw some stuff out there. I applied at a vitamin shop and became a key holder assistant manager at the vitamin shop. That was on my resume. And I was making $16 an hour. It's so incredible to me
Where do
because
these numbers come from?
now as an editor, I do freelance editing, book editing, and I charge $100 an hour compared to what I was doing there in the work and the manual labor on my feet, running literally all day long for $16 an hour. That is what we face out there in the marketplace. It's not much better now.
No, it's not.
So that's really how I, paid my bills until people were telling me the whole time, you're a writer. Why aren't you writing? Why aren't you doing that? And my limiting belief was, how do I find clients? How can people know I'll do a good job? How do I vet myself? I didn't know how to do that. And so I started taking marketing clients and really developed a system. And I was doing telesummits. I was facilitating telesummits. I had a team of 6 people, all freelancers. See, my administrative skills of raising 7 children and homeschooling them was coming in. You do this, you do this, you do this. Let's
Perfect.
go, rah, rah,
Yeah.
rah.
You need to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, where did you find these people? These freelancers.
I asked friends. I went on Odesk, Elance. I put an ad in that online rag. I can't think of the name of it right now. Everybody sells stuff on there. Just go in, put in your stuff for sale.
Craigslist.
Craigslist,
Oh,
Craigslist.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes. I put an ad on Craigslist. I'm looking for a freelance administrative assistant, and I found a great gal. She was amazing. She was working on her master's degree at a mother going back to school,
Hmm.
and she only lived like 2 miles away, and it was awesome. She was great. Um, and by the way, I paid her $10 an hour, and I was charging, I forget now, 35 at the time, maybe $40 an hour. Um, and so I was starting to make money. I was starting to actually feel like I could be independent, not live in someone else's house. Now, I lived
Now,
in house shares.
I got to
Oh,
ask you, you started at 52, so I'm kind of pacing the transition here.
mhm.
On your own, 53, you're kind of in South Carolina. So how
Yes.
old are you now that you're gonna get into the
I was around 55 by
Okay,
that
so
point.
this is 3 years is not really that long a time to
No.
make all these pivots and transitions.
Yes, yes. I just tried what worked, expanded that, tried what worked again, expanded that.
Right.
And I was working 2 years with that telesummit company, and I was doing well with that. But then I got into a really dry spell, and telesummits kind of go in vogue, and then they go out of style, and then they come back, and it's kind of like a rise and fall. And I realized that the system, we were in a slump with telesummits. People always are changing up what they're doing for their marketing. So um, and it was a lot of work. It was a tremendous amount of responsibility. We were running the telesummits. We were manning the controls, as the person was on, doing their event.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, I did a few things. I sold hot tubs on a showroom floor. Really great training for sales. Oh, I'm so thankful I had that job. But at the time, I I applied for the job. Somebody told me they're hiring a marketing person over there at this company. Go over there. I went over there. He said, well, yes, we need online marketing, but we need salespeople. Everybody in this store sells hot tubs. In case you're here by yourself, you have to know how to sell a hot tub. I'm like, oh, I've never even been in a hot tub. I have no idea. Handed me a big manual to learn it. And I started to learn how to sell, because up until that point, sales was a real, like a stopping point for me. I had this hitch about sales, and it shifted my mindset working in that store. And looking back now, I see divine guidance. I was gently guided here and there, and I learned this and learned that. And, you know, there were some tough times with bosses and coworkers and all kinds of things going on. But at the same time, I was really learning so much. And I discovered I love sales because I saw it suddenly as helping people, not asking for money.
Hmm.
I was always so focused on not wanting to ask them for money. But I sold a hot tub to a couple, an older couple. They came in a couple weeks later to get their chemicals and stuff. And the wife pulled me aside and she said, oh, my husband's a new man. She said, he has such bad knees and he's always in pain. He said, he gets up, he gets in the hot tub first thing in the morning, comes out, he's like, oh, I feel so much better. And he goes on with his day and he mows and he does all this stuff. And then at night he's back in the hot tub and he comes to bed. He's like, oh, I feel so much better. And I was like, wow, this stuff is great. All of a sudden I become a hot tub champion.
Well, now I need to get one. Well, that's
So
amazing because then you
yeah.
did learn that it's you are helping people because they're coming to you for there has to be an exchange of money, but they're looking for a solution to a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And so that really shifted my mindset, and I became a top seller in the region and went to California for the regional, hoopla thing because I was top in the
Hot
region.
tub sales. Were you the top?
Yeah, I was at the top of my region. Yeah. So that happened in 9 months, and the regional director was like, I've never seen anybody do this in 9 months. I'm like, well, it isn't 9 months, it's more like 55 years worth of experience. Suddenly, something came here.
Great.
So, but still, I wasn't fulfilled. I still felt like I was just grinding out, the life, and I wasn't really happy. I knew there was more for me. And I went to an event in Las Vegas. And at that point, I was back to freelance marketing again. And like I said, I had trouble with bosses and stuff. It was my personal development to know how to stand up for myself, how to be a professional in my own right, not asking someone to offer me a job, like a favor.
Mhm.
That was my, like, I'm a downtrodden person. I need you to give me a job. And then they treated me like a downtrodden person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my mindset. I totally own that. So I was in Las Vegas and I was getting clients for this marketing, and I was okay with it. And I was standing in the hotel lobby at one of these big hotels, in Las Vegas. And there was this flower arrangement, was like 8 feet tall. And we were waiting on the shuttle bus to go back to the hotel, to our hotel. And this woman was standing there, and we're there for networking, and she looked over and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Oh, fine." She says, "What are you here for?" I said, "Well, I have a marketing, I'm a freelance marketer and I'm looking for marketing clients." I said, "What do you do?" She said, "I'm a book broker. I connect people with ghostwriters."
Wow.
I said, "Oh my God, I'm a published author. I have more than 20 published books and I've been thinking about ghostwriting." She said, "Here's my card." She said, "I need ghostwriters."
Beautiful.
So we connected later. I started editing for her at the beginning. This was at the end of, or the beginning of 2012. And I was doing editing work and kind of sideline work for her. But in 2015, I was sitting at my desk working on a project for a marketing project. I was writing a LinkedIn profile. I remember I was writing somebody's LinkedIn profile, and I was thinking, I can do so much more than this. This is not really my sweet spot. And Spirit just spoke to me so clearly. What are you doing? All you have to do is stand up in those networking meetings, because I was going to personal networking meetings, BNI, and all this stuff. Stand up and say, "I'm a ghostwriter. I can help you get your book done." And I went, "Oh my God, yes. Why haven't I been doing that?" So the next time, a few days later, I went to the meeting. Everybody gets their turn to stand up, say what they do. And I stand up and say, "I'm a published author. I have more than 20 published books, and I can ghostwrite your book or help you get it done." And every head in the place swiveled. I had been standing in that room for months, and nobody heard me until I owned who I was. And that is really the point today. Nobody heard me till I owned who I was. I said, "I am a ghostwriter. I am a published author." And that made all the difference in my life. Within 3 months, I had my first book contract. I went full time as a ghostwriter, and I've been supporting myself now since 2015, 8 years as a ghostwriter and an editor and a book coach. But my main bread and butter is ghostwriting.
I'm speechless. That's just, I mean, that's really awesome because looking back over the history, you've had to deal with some incredible life moments, and I'm trying to be PG or G at this point in the conversation. Um, you quite literally called your mom a dragon lady. Nobody calls their mom. I don't even. Well, I'm not even gonna say that, but nobody calls their mom a dragon lady. And gets away with it. And then, oh, I want to I want to go back if we can.
Mhm.
I know we've been on the conversation for 20 minutes or so. I want to go back to that conversation you had with your friend that changed it all, that caused you to leave. Because you were real quick with that conversation,
Mhm.
but you said it just went, it just hit you, and
Yes.
then something inside of you woke up or changed. And I would like for you to share that one 5 minutes of experience. What was that? Please go back to that conversation
Sure.
because I think
This
people need to
person,
hear that.
yes, it was a pivotal moment in my life. It was one of those before and after moments in my life.
Right.
And by the way, I saw her later. She did not remember the conversation. She
Like
didn't
at
remember
all?
no, not at all.
Wow.
It was
Did
a
it
God
happen?
moment. Yeah, it was a God moment. So
Wow.
she and I had been best friends before we went overseas. We lived in the Caribbean for 14 years. And before we went, she and I were inseparable. We called each other every day. She had she had 8 children, I had 7, and we were in each other's houses. Our kids were, best friends with each other, and we were constantly in contact. And it really tore my heart out when we moved
Mm.
overseas and lost that ability to be in touch with her. But over the 14 years that we were overseas, she had moved twice. I lost touch. I didn't know where she was anymore. She moved to North Carolina. She moved to Florida. I had no idea. And I got an email, and it was from her. It was a newsy kind of newsletter family email. Like she had a long list of people that she sent to, and my address happened to be in her list. And I looked at it, and it was 4 minutes old. She had sent it 4 minutes ago. And I thought, she's at home. So I looked down and I found her phone number and I called her, and she picked up. There was a couple times that I had tried to see if I could find her after we came back to the US, but I couldn't, I never connected.
Hmm.
This time she picked up. And so we had a history together, and she knew my husband's family because his family lived in the same town and we went to the same church together. So, I said to her, when she said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Pete's here, my brother-in-law, and I'm really struggling. I just can't keep up with everything. I feel like I'm not heard when I say what I need, and I'm just really struggling." She said, "Your husband's dead wrong. He's wrong, and you're going to cave in. I had a breakdown a few years ago," she said, "and I could hear in your voice what happened to me. And I'm telling you, and I want you to listen to me, you have to leave." Now, this woman was from a conservative family. She was telling me to leave my husband, who was a
30 years.
pastor.
Yeah. Yeah.
My husband was an active pastor. He had a church. He was in the pulpit every Sunday. I was a pastor's wife with my husband being the leader of this church, okay?
Mhm.
And this woman knows all that. She was in the same movement I was and everything. She said, "Leave him."
So it begs the question, did she leave her husband?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Okay. Just because, but she knew your pain.
Yeah,
Okay.
she knew my pain.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
And she had been through some other struggles besides her marriage. One of her sons was killed in a car accident. There was a lot of pain, in the family that had happened, aside from the fact she had a really great marriage.
Okay.
Um, Her husband's a wonderful man. They're still
Okay.
together. I guess it's been almost 50 years now. But she was 10 years older than me.
Okay.
But yeah, and I couldn't believe it was coming out of her mouth, because she would have been the one to say to me, "Suck it up, girl. Dig in. Keep going." Um, no, she told me the truth I needed to hear.
Good.
Yeah, and I felt like I was ripping my heart out with my two hands. As I was driving to South Carolina, which was a 12-hour drive, I left the house at 3 o'clock in the morning. I drove through Washington. I got into Virginia, which was probably 3 hours away, and I pulled into a rest area and I lay down in the seat and I went to sleep. I was so emotionally racked. And then I got up after an hour or so and I drove another 3 or 4 hours, went to a rest area, lay down, and went to sleep. I was just at the end of my rope. I was for the first 3 or 4 months, I was just so exhausted. My body was so exhausted that I stayed at my sister's for some weeks. I stayed with my mother for some weeks and just slept.
Mhm.
I was exhausted beyond what I would consider human capability. I don't think I'd slept properly for probably 20 years, but being in that house with all that work,
Yeah.
it was unmanageable.
Yeah.
So that's really, how it happened. I went to see that same friend later, and she had no idea that she had told me that. She had no idea memory of the phone call, and we did not stay in touch.
Oh.
After that, we didn't stay in touch. I went a different direction in my life, and I got away from religion, that type of religion, that restrictive thing that I was in. and went into more spiritual practice and meditation and mindfulness and so forth. And I'm so much happier now, than I was when I had all the shoulds and got tos, because I had to sit every Sunday and look at my husband in the pulpit,
Mm,
being the star of the show and telling everybody else how to live. And I couldn't look at him. I would sit there with my eyes closed the entire service. I couldn't look at him. And it wasn't that I hated him. I just couldn't look at him. I
right.
was so done. My body was weak. My mind was overwhelmed. And I just shut my eyes. Yeah.
I want to thank you for sharing your story because I know somebody who's listening needs to hear it. Now in your life, so things are good. You've got a good business, you make good money, you are comfortable within your own skin, and you are at peace with your life. How, what would you say to the woman who's listening today to say, I don't even know if you would say you need to leave, but maybe what would you say? Because something needs to change. They're at a point where something needs to change, but often we're so scared to make those changes. What would you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I talked to someone just 2 weeks ago, and she said, I know I need to change, but I feel trapped. I, we're doing this, we're doing that, and I feel like I can't make a change because I can't leave these projects, and there's all these reasons why. And I'll tell you what I told her, and this is what I found to be true in so much in many, many people that I've talked to, men and women. When someone feels trapped, it's not because they don't have any solutions. It's because the solutions that they should take, that were good for them to take, they don't want to.
Hmm,
They don't want to make the move. They don't want to take the leap of faith. There's an unwillingness to take the step, even though it's the best one, even though it's best for them. They don't want to. And fear holds us down. Fear keeps us in bondage. So when someone feels trapped and they know that they need to make a change, like change a job or something like that, to be able to sit down and actually take some action. I sat down and I listed all of my marketable skills. That was an action step that helped me to the next level, because when I tried one thing on the list, if that didn't go like I wanted, I went back to the list and I found something else I could do, something else over here, put together my administrative ability with this other thing and work that and see how I can create something that works for me, that is manageable and that I like, that lifts me up. Because when we're doing something that isn't in our best interest, in our passion, we drain our energy. And when we end the day, I loved working at the vitamin shop. I loved it because I love learning about health. I learned so much about vitamins and health and so forth. But when I got home at night, I was drained, not just tired, drained.
yeah,
Yeah. And now finding something that you actually fills you up with good feelings and happiness and joy. When you finish the day, you feel an uplift. You feel a buoyancy, like, man, that was a good day. That was awesome. I got to do this and it was really fun. And I talked with this client and we're looking at their book, and man, it's going to be great. I can't wait to dig into it. It's awesome. That is an uplifting energy. And once I keyed into that feeling of buoyancy and upliftment, I was hooked. I was totally hooked on that. I want more of that.
good.
Yeah.
Where can people find you for just to talk or to get a book written?
Go to lanamacara.com. Very simple. And there you'll see all my contact information. There's more about me, what I do, some of the books I've written. I've got a new book coming out next month called Reaping the Whirlwind. It's there too.
Then you're coming back.
I'm coming back. I'm finally writing my own stuff again. I'm so excited.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Lana, thank you so much for this conversation. And you're coming back. And for those of you who are watching or listening, I'm going to have all of her contact information in the description of this video. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Question Guy podcast. Take care, everybody.